What if I told you it's possible to start the day with literally zero Brazilian currency and end it with $200 in your pocket? Would you believe it, or would you think it's just another empty internet promise? Because I know exactly what's going through your head right now. It seems too good to be true, doesn't it? Especially today, when everyone talks about making money online, extra income, financial freedom. But almost no one shows in a simple, direct, and realistic way how to start from absolute zero. And maybe you've already been through this. You tried some method, watched several videos, saved ideas, but in the end, nothing really worked as promised. Now let me ask you something. For real, what if the problem was never a lack of opportunity, but rather the way you were taught to view money? I've been there too. No investment, no advanced experience, no audience, no followers. Just one decision to test something simple and see how far I could go. And that's when something happened that, honestly, even I didn't expect. In less than 24 hours, that zero started to change. First, slowly, almost imperceptibly. And then, suddenly, it turned into $200. And no, this didn't come from luck. It wasn't a stroke of luck, it wasn't an unexpected viral sensation, and it certainly wasn't some hidden magic trick. It was a process, a simple method, based on something that most people completely ignore when trying to make money online. The most curious thing about all this is that there's nothing extraordinary about what I did. It doesn't involve rare skills or complicated tools. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's something so simple that many people ignore it, and that's exactly why it works. Have you ever noticed how the best opportunities seem invisible until someone shows you the right path? That's right, and what you're about to discover might surprise you precisely because of that. While many people get stuck trying to learn everything before they even begin, waiting for the perfect moment, accumulating information, there is a small group of people who simply act, even without having everything ready, even starting from scratch. And these are the people who achieve quick results not because they know more, but because they do things differently. And perhaps that's the most important point of this video. It's not about quick money. It's about understanding how money really starts to appear when you change the way you think and act. It's about building a financial growth mindset that allows you to see opportunities where before you only saw doubt. So if you're tired of trying and getting nowhere, or if you feel there's something you still don't understand about making money online, stick with me until the end, because what I'm about to show you isn't just a step-by-step guide, it's a change of perspective, and it all started with a simple decision I made that day. A decision that, looking back now, seems obvious, but that almost no one makes when starting from scratch. Because, ultimately, what really changes the game isn't having money. It's knowing what to do even when you have nothing, and that's exactly where almost everyone gets stuck. They wait for the ideal scenario, the perfect tool, the right moment. When, in reality, what makes the difference is taking the first step with what you already have now. And I know that, as you listen to this, something inside you has already started to make sense. Maybe you're remembering some attempt that didn't work out. Or maybe you're realizing that you never really tried because you always thought you needed more preparation. Have you ever been through this? If this topic has made sense to you so far, leave a comment below about what resonated with you the most. It could be a question, an experience you've had trying to make money online, or even what's holding you back today. Honestly, I read these comments and that's exactly what helps me understand your needs and create increasingly direct and useful content. And if, at any point in this video, you feel that it's opening your mind in some way, go ahead and leave a like. It may seem like a simple thing, but it makes a huge difference. It shows the platform that this type of content needs to reach more people who are in exactly the same situation as you. Now, if you want to continue learning real ways to start from scratch, build online income, and develop a financial growth mindset, then subscribe to the channel, because everything I share here is based on practice, testing, and results, without complications or unrealistic promises. Your participation here isn't just a click. It literally helps this content grow, reach more people, and create a community of people who are truly seeking to evolve. And while many people are still stuck trying to figure out where to start, there's a simple, almost invisible detail. That's exactly what got me going that day, and that's what I need to show you now. But I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because it's not just about telling you that this happened, it's about showing you that there's a logic behind it. Something that few people realize, but that completely changes the way you see money, opportunities, and even the decisions you make every day. When I say I went from zero to making $200 in a single day, it's not to sound impressive, it's to provoke you. Because the hidden truth here isn't in the amount itself, but in what it represents. It represents that there's a more direct, simpler path and it's accessible, even if you haven't realized it yet. And this is where something important comes in, proof. Because without proof, all of this just becomes another pretty story on the internet. And I know that. That's why, at that moment, I made sure to document everything. Every step, every attempt, every small result. Because what seemed like just another test ended up becoming a sequence of decisions that, together, created a real impact. It wasn't perfect, There were mistakes, there were doubts, there was that moment when I thought, this isn't going to amount to anything. But even so, I continued. And that's exactly where most people give up behind the scenes. When there are still no results, when everything seems uncertain. But what nobody tells you is that results don't come from one big action. They come from small decisions aligned with the right action. And when you understand that, everything starts to change. Your mindset changes. Your way of seeing opportunities changes. And most importantly, your speed of execution changes. Because in the end, it's not about knowing more. It's about acting on what you already know. It's about moving from theory to practice, even if it seems too simple to work. And perhaps this is the biggest revelation so far. The money doesn't start when you have everything ready. It starts when you decide to test, adjust, and continue, even without any guarantees. If this is starting to make sense to you, comment below. This makes sense to me. I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because what happened after that decision wasn't random, much less luck. There was a pattern there, a simple, almost invisible logic, that began to reveal itself as I progressed. And when you understand that structure, everything changes, not just in that specific case, but in how you see money, opportunities, and growth. Basically, what I did was identify a real need that already existed, something that people were looking for, needing, or even paying for at that exact moment. Nothing invented, nothing complex. And instead of trying to create something from scratch, I simply connected that need to a practical solution. This is the kind of hidden truth that few people talk about. You don't need to reinvent anything, you just need to observe better. From there, a crucial part comes into play: execution. Without perfectionism, without excessive analysis, without getting bogged down in the details, I acted quickly. And that sounds simple when you hear it, but in practice, that's where most people get stuck. Because acting quickly means accepting imperfection, making decisions based on what you have, and trusting the process even without having all the answers. And it is precisely at this point that the transformation begins. Because when you execute, you truly enter the game. You start to see how things work behind the scenes. You start to adjust, improve, adapt. And the most interesting thing is that each small action generates a kind of immediate feedback, as if the process itself were guiding you. It wasn't some grand, elaborate strategy. It was a sequence of simple actions, aligned with a different mindset. A mindset focused on movement, not on endless preparation. And that created an effect I hadn't anticipated. Because when the first response appeared, everything started to make more sense. And at that moment, still unsure of what was to come, I realized there was a next step, something straightforward, almost obvious, but that needed to be done the right way to truly generate results. If this way of thinking has already started to change something inside you, comment, I'm starting to understand. I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because it was precisely here that everything started to move from the realm of ideas to real practice. Finding the opportunity wasn't a magical moment, nor something that appeared out of nowhere. It was an adjustment in perception. I stopped looking for brilliant ideas and started observing what was already happening around me. And that completely changes the game. Instead of thinking, what can I create? I thought, what are people already looking for at this very moment? This simple change in mindset opens a door that most people ignore. Because opportunities aren't hidden, they're visible, but go unnoticed by those who are too focused on trying to innovate. I started looking at simple platforms, places where there's constant movement, people offering, people asking, people buying. And there, behind the scenes, there's a very clear pattern. There's always someone with an urgent problem and someone willing to pay for a quick solution. The big revelation here is that you don't need to be the most advanced expert. You just need to be the bridge between the need and the solution. And when I understood that, something instantly changed in the way I made decisions. Because finding opportunity isn't about luck, it's about attention. It's about developing the ability to see value where it once seemed ordinary. And the more you practice this, the more opportunities begin to appear, almost as if they were always there, waiting for you to notice. In my case, I found something extremely simple. So simple that, if I were still stuck in my old mindset, I probably would have ignored it. But this time, it was different. I saw potential, even without a guarantee. And that was enough to take the next step. And this is where many people get stuck. Because identifying the problem is one thing, but acting on it requires a quick, almost instinctive decision. Without excessive analysis, without trying to predict everything, just action. And it was precisely at that point that I did something that, looking back now, seems basic, but was essential to transforming that opportunity into something concrete. If you've ever missed an opportunity because it seemed too simple, comment, I've let it pass by before. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because identifying the opportunity was only the beginning. What really made the difference was how I executed it. And here comes one of the most ignored truths in this process. Speed creates an advantage. Not speed without direction, but speed with intention, even if imperfect. At that moment, I didn't stop to devise a complex plan, nor did I get bogged down trying to predict every scenario. I simply acted. I seized that simple opportunity and transformed it into something practical, direct, and functional. No perfect aesthetics, no ideal structure, just enough to make it work. And that completely changes the dynamic, because while many people are planning, you're already experiencing the behind-the-scenes aspects of the process. And it's behind the scenes that the real transformation happens. Because when you execute quickly, you start receiving real signals. Small responses, small interactions, small indications that something might work. And these signals are worth more than any theory, because they come from practice. But there's an important detail here. Acting quickly doesn't mean acting without thinking. It means making decisions based on what you already have, without letting fear paralyze you. It's a type of mindset that accepts initial discomfort as part of the journey. And this creates a powerful cumulative effect. Every action generates learning. Every lesson learned shapes the next decision. And before you know it, you're already in motion, and that motion, in itself, puts you ahead of most people. I remember that, while I was performing, there was still doubt. That voice was still there, questioning everything. But this time, it didn't stop me. And that made all the difference. Because the impact didn't come from a perfect action. It came from consistency. And it was precisely in this sequence of simple, quick, and imperfect actions that something began to happen. Something small at first, but which carried a much greater meaning than it seemed at that moment. If you feel you need to stop overthinking and start acting, comment below. I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because it was precisely at this point that everything ceased to be theory and became reality. After executing, adjusting, and continuing even with doubt, something happened that seemed small to an outsider. But for those living the process, it has a gigantic impact. The first sale. And it's not even about the monetary value itself. It's about the meaning. I remember the exact moment. It wasn't anything cinematic. There was no background music or exaggerated celebration. It was simple, almost silent. But at the same time, it was as if a switch had flipped in my head. Because that small confirmation proved something much bigger. It worked. Everything that once seemed uncertain, distant, or even improbable, suddenly became possible, real, tangible, and that's one of the greatest revelations of this journey. You don't need dozens of results to believe a single result is enough to change your mindset. But there's an important detail that almost no one talks about. The first sale doesn't come when you're ready. It comes when you take action, even without complete confidence, even without total mastery, even with that feeling of will this work. And when it happens, something changes inside you. Your decision-making process changes. Your perception of risk changes. You begin to see opportunities more clearly, because now there is a real reference point. It's no longer theory, no longer guesswork, it's experience. And perhaps this is the most transformative point so far. The first sale isn't about money. It's about proving to yourself that you can do it. And this internal proof has a much greater impact than any external result. Because from that moment on, you're no longer trying to figure out if it works. You're starting to understand how to make it work better. And that's exactly what happened to me. After that first, still small, result, I realized there was a pattern there. Something that could be repeated, adjusted, and enhanced. If you can imagine what it must be like to see that first result happen, comment below. I want to experience this now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because, after the first sale, something changes almost automatically. You stop seeking validation and start seeking repetition. And that's a silent but extremely powerful shift in this journey. Up until that point, everything was doubt, testing, trial and error. But after the first result appears, you start to see a pattern. Small, still unstable, but real. And that's where one of the most important decisions of the whole process comes in. Instead of looking for something new, I focused on repeating what had already worked. It seems simple, but this choice has a huge impact. Because most people make the mistake of abandoning what worked too soon, thinking they need something bigger, more sophisticated. But the hidden truth here is different. Growth comes from consistency, not complexity. So I did exactly that. I took that first result and started replicating the process. Adjusting small details, improving the approach, better understanding the need. But without changing the basis, and with each repetition, something interesting happened. The process became clearer, faster, more efficient. And it's at this point that you begin to feel the cumulative effect. It's not a gigantic leap all at once. It's a build-up. One result leading to another, creating a rhythm. And when you realize it, what started as a simple attempt is already generating a much greater impact than seemed possible at the beginning. That's how 0 became 10, 10 became 50, and when I stopped to look, I was already very close to $200. Not because I did anything extraordinary, but because I stayed focused on what was already working. And perhaps that's one of the greatest revelations of this whole experience. Scaling isn't about doing more things. It's about doing better what already works. And as this process unfolded, an even deeper realization began to emerge. Something that wasn't just about money, but about how I was making decisions throughout this journey. If you've ever noticed that sometimes you complicate something that could be simple, comment below. Less is more. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because ultimately, the $200 was just the tip of the iceberg of something much bigger happening behind the scenes. The real impact wasn't financial, it was mental. It was a silent but profound shift in how I began to view decisions, opportunities, and the growth journey itself. Because until then, I believed that results came after a long time, a lot of preparation, a lot of planning. But that experience revealed something different, almost counterintuitive. Results come when you get moving with what you have, even if it seems like little. And that's a hidden truth that changes everything. You begin to realize that the game isn't about waiting for security. It's about creating security through action. It's not about avoiding mistakes. It's about using mistakes as part of the process. And when that mindset takes hold, something changes permanently. You stop seeing obstacles as roadblocks and start seeing them as a natural part of the construction. And this has a direct effect on your decisions. You stop procrastinating, you stop overanalyzing, you stop constantly seeking external validation. Instead, you act, observe, adjust. It's that simple. And this simplicity, which previously seemed insufficient, becomes your greatest advantage. The transformation happens precisely there, when you understand that you don't need permission, nor perfect conditions, to start generating results. You only need enough clarity to take the next step, and the courage to continue, even without guarantees. And perhaps that's the biggest revelation of this whole experience. Money is a consequence. What truly builds consistent results is how you think, decide, and act behind the scenes, when no one is watching. And when you internalize that, it's not just about doing 200 in a day. It's about realizing that you can repeat, improve, and expand that process consciously. If this vision of mindset and transformation resonated with you, comment below. It changed my perspective. And if you've made it this far, it probably wasn't by chance. Some part of this message resonated with you, whether through experience, doubt, or that feeling that there's something bigger you can still explore. If this type of content resonates with you, subscribing to the channel is a simple way to continue this journey with me, because the idea here isn't just to show isolated results. It's to build a different, more practical and realistic perspective on money, decisions, and growth over time. And if at any point in this video something clicked for you, leave a like. It's a simple gesture, but it shows that this exchange made sense and helps this type of content continue to reach those who also need to hear it. Now, I want to propose something quick. Comment below. I'm with you until the end, just so I know who has truly followed along this far and is on this journey of evolution. And before you leave, there's a video here that perfectly complements what you just saw. It delves even deeper into this logic and shows how to transform it into something consistent. Click and continue with me there, because this journey is only just beginning.